we are going to talk about two very important but also very confusing Swift keywords, unowned and weak. And as you can imagine, to speak about these two keywords, I'm going to need to paste in some code to have some context. So I've pasted in quite some code, but we're going to cover it step by step. So first you can see I have a protocol called service with a function call, and this function is going to return the result of some service call. And to keep things simple, here I have hard-coded the result to be of type int. Then I have a view controller. So the view controller is going to own an instance of service, or actually a type that implements the protocol service. It's also going to own a UI label, so to display something on the screen. Then there will be a function called format, which is going to take the raw data retrieved through the service and format it for it to be displayed on the string. So it's a very simplified example of what could be a business logic. And then we have the implementation of viewDidLoad, where, as you can imagine, we are going to call the service in order to get the raw data, format it, and display it in the label. And if you have some experience in Swift, you might have already spotted that there is something wrong in this code. And it has everything to do with the closure here that is passed as the completion handler of the call. So if we take a look at the closure, we can see that we are capturing self in the closure. We actually capture it twice. We capture it when we want to access the label, and we capture it when we want to access the format function. And this might potentially lead to a retain call, because here we have an escaping closure that captures self, and this closure could be retained by the service, and the service is itself retained by the view controller, which is self. So if the service retains the closure, we have created a retain cycle. And since the service is a protocol, we actually have no real way of knowing whether or not the closure is retained. In a real project, the documentation might say something about it, but here it's not the case. So we need to find a way to prevent this potential retain cycle. And this is where weak and unowned are going to come into play. So for the moment, I am capturing a strong instance of self in my closure. So the good part is that I can use self in the closure, but the bad part is this potential retain cycle. So let's see how we can break this. So first option is to use weak, meaning that we're going to capture a weak instance of self. So the way to do it is to use the capture list of the closure and write weak self here before the argument list. And what this weak self means is that now the closure is not actually going to retain self. What's going to happen is that when the closure is executed, well, if self is still in memory, self will contain a reference to the instance, but if the instance is no longer in memory, self will contain nil. And the consequence of it is that in the closure, self is now an optional. And when we use it, we must deal with it like any other optional, meaning that we must unwrap the value using either optional chaining, a guardlet, an iflet, etc. So a consequence of it in this case is that when we call the function format, since we call it on an optional self, well, the return of the function is now also optional. So we must provide a default value. Alternatively, if we want to get rid of this optional value in the closure, well, at the beginning of the closure, we can add a guardlet self equals self else return as the first instruction of the closure. And now self is no longer optional in the closure. We can use it just like we were before. And what's going to happen is that when the closure is called, well, if self is nil, we will fall into the else clause, and so the closure will return and this code won't be executed. And if the instance associated with self is still in memory, well, we will be able to use self as a non-optional value for the rest of the closure. So this is how weak self works. And what's nice with weak self is that since we are no longer retaining a strong reference to self in the closure, well, there is no longer a risk of creating a retain cycle. But on the other hand, we've seen that we had to introduce some extra syntax in order to deal with the potential nil value. And in a situation like this, we might argue that it doesn't really make sense to have this extra code, because actually, since the service is owned by the view controller, well, we know that when the closure is going to be called, the view controller will still be in memory. So in situation like this, we can use another keyword instead of weak. We can use unowned. So unowned is going to act kind of like weak, meaning that the closure won't be retaining a strong instance of self. And we can see that we can also use self as a non-optional value. But the way this works is that if by mistake, when the closure is called, self is nil, then our code will crash, because accessing self when it is unowned, it's kind of like doing a force unwrapping. If there is nil inside the thing we force unwrap, our app crashes. It's the same thing here. So this unowned, it can be a bit dangerous, because as soon as you use unowned, well, you must be sure as a developer that indeed it's not possible for your Clojure to be called when self is nil. And it can be tricky because, for instance, as we've said, here it seems obvious that, of course, since the service is owned by the view controller, well, the view controller will still be in memory when the Clojure is called by the service. But let's imagine that a same instance of service is shared across several view controllers. Well, in that case, it would be possible for the view controller to go out of memory before the service actually does. And in this instance, it would lead to a crash. That's why when you use unowned, you must really be careful, because crashes can happen in some unexpected way. And if you're not 100% sure that the Clojure cannot be called once self is nil, well, you can always follow the safer path of using weak instead of unowned. And before we end this video, I want to add something, is that even though in this video I've been using weak and unowned in the capture list of a Clojure, well, actually these two keywords, they can be used just on any property. So for instance, let's introduce a new protocol. So it's a protocol for a delegate for the view controller. And now let's say that my controller wants to store its delegate in a property. So it's going to be something of type view controller delegate. All right, I'm going to make it nil by default. And if you've already worked with delegate in iOS, you probably know that a delegate must never be retained, because this can also lead to a retain cycle. For instance, let's imagine that my delegate is implemented by a navigation controller. Well, we would be in a situation where the navigation controller retains the view controller, and the view controller also retains the navigation controller through the delegate property. And of course, this would also lead to a retain cycle. Well, to solve this issue, we can use weak. Just as we have used it in the capture list of a Clojure, we can also use weak as an attribute in a property. And when we declare our property as weak, it has the same meaning, the same semantics than in the Clojure. It means that the delegate property is not going to retain the reference that it stores. And as soon as the object that it references goes out of memory, well, the property is going to be set to nil automatically. And of course, a consequence of it is that just like with weak self, we must implement the type associated with a weak variable as an optional value, because it can be set to nil. And this time it's actually all for this video. So as we've seen, unowned and weak are indeed two very powerful keywords in Swift, and the reason why they might appear confusing at first glance is that because they implement the same feature, the ability to break potential retain cycle, but they implement two subtle variations of the feature. That's why when you don't know how each one works, they might seem confusing, but since we have now covered their exact semantics, I'm sure the difference between them must be much clearer in your mind right now. Thank you for watching this video, and see you next time.